Hey guys, what's going on? Adam Rounisto here for day number 45, and today I'm going to be talking about a valuable skill of taking what you're studying and being able to learn it twice as fast, being able to take it and effectively learn it at a phenomenal rate as well as retain everything that you're reading. Now, who am I talking to? I'm not talking to just college students, although this is very helpful, because a lot of people have this misunderstanding about how good they're doing and they end up failing their tests. But I'm also talking to people in later education. I'm talking about people out of college, because there's no reason to stop ever learning. There's no excuse once I'm out of college and have the desired position or desired result that I'm going to stop learning. That's not the, that's not the goal at all. And our first term we have right here is metacognition. Now, metacognition is our awareness of how much we understand about a particular kind of curriculum. So that means, for an example, if a college student thinks that they are overconfident and they have an understanding of the material that is very low in comparison, then they're going to have a very poor metacognition, and then I'm failing the test and saying, oh, I don't know what happened, So what we want to do is we want to make it so we have an accurate metacognition, and how we can do that is by preparing for the material a lot better. Studies were showing that people who had a low metacognition went way away from their desired result, where people had an accurate metacognition, people who were literally aware of what they had, end up doing in the higher range and end up being closer to how they felt they were going to do. So, my question right off the bat is, out of these factors about learning, which one of these are the most important? Your intention on what you want to learn or not? The attention that you're paying when you're studying your material? Your learning style, because we talked about it before. You have like kinesthetic learners, auditory learners, and visual learners, things like that. The time you spent, or what you're thinking about when you're studying. Now, these all have an important factor to some way or the other, but one of these is by far the most important. So my question to you is, real quick, out of these, what would you say are the most important, have most impact on what you're learning? We'll get back to that in a minute. So they did a test where people were going to be presented a list of 20-some words, and then there was two different groups. So there were ones that knew and ones that did not know that they are going to be studying, or that they are going to be reciting these words afterwards. So the people who did know were told before they were given the list, hey, you're going to be given this list of 20 words. You're going to have to memorize them after the end of it. So this is testing for one of the factors. Some people knew, some people did not. Now, out of that group, some were told to help them remember to look for how many words had the letter E in it. So there was people who knew and they were looking for an E. There's people who didn't know, but they were still told, hey, look for how many words had the letter E. The other people were looking for the pleasantness. I don't know if I can spell it right. Yeah, it's not enough room. So the pleasantness of the word. So that means, are these words nice or bad? Some of the words that they had on the list were sour, sweet, bitter. You get the point. Just very simplistic words. So out of these four test groups, they found out from the results that it did not make any impact on whether or not they knew or didn't know prior to giving the words on how effective they did. So that means that in this sense, the intention of wanting to learn the material, even though intention is very important in very broad things, it's important that you have goals with an intention. But for this particular example, the intention of wanting to learn those 20 words just like that didn't have that much of an impact. Next was the attention. So both were intently looking, but there was no results that could be proven there was any difference, because the ranges were still relatively the same whether or not these two groups were paying attention. Well, I mean, they're obviously paying attention to the words, but learning style, once again, there's no significant thing proving, because this was under the same kind of medium, so at least for this result. The time. A lot of people say that the more time you spend, the more you automatically learn. Well, these people were given the exact amount of time, and there was only one thing particularly right here that they figured that really made an impact. Now, what you think about while you're studying, well, what does that mean? The people who are relating things to the, whether or not they're pleasant or not, so if they, let's say they took sweet, and they said, oh, I like that word. Now, some people who are looking for E's would indicate, hey, this word has 2 E's. Maybe they might remember that because it's unusual from the other ones, right? But to automatically think about, is it pleasant? Is it getting to a deeper level of understanding? It's understanding personally to you, you know, how valuable is this to me? So you're going to relate this to personal experience, and this is going to create a deep understanding versus the shallow understanding from looking at things like E. So really, when we're studying, we're looking at very particular variables. If we're looking at a surface level thing, or for example, if you're trying to remember certain terms or explicit little details about little things, that is a shallow understanding to remember or highlight just the definition just as much as it is to like look for the letters in a particular sentence. The only way we can effectively learn is if we have a deep understanding. So to have a deep understanding, the biggest things we have to focus on are these 5 main points right here. So we want to know if we can elaborate. So if the word was sweet, just for the sheer sake of example, obviously you're not going to be learning about the word sweet when you're studying. But whatever you're taking, for sweet were the example, how much can you elaborate on what sweet means? How much can you say from a different pinpoint example about how it's, what it is from different angles? You know, how much can you elaborate on your topic? I know it's a very bizarre thing to consider a one word try to elaborate on. Number 2 is how distinct it is. So, in comparison to something else, how is it unique to the other thing? So if you're learning something, you're going to want to be able to elaborate on it, and you're going to want to be able to decide how distinct it is in its own. 3 is how is it going to, this is more for college or if you're taking a test, but how is it going to be presented on a test in such a way they're going to have to use it? So how are you going to have to retrieve this information? 4 is about how personal, like we said before, it is to you. So these are the 4 main points right here about what you're going to want to be relating when you're reading. You're going to want to be able to elaborate it from several different angles. You're going to want to be able to see how distinct it is among all the rest of the stuff you're learning. You're going to want to be able to figure out your moment or your method of retrieval. Is on your test going to be multiple choice? Or you're going to have some kind of deep level of understanding, which probably is a lot of times the case. And how personal it is to you. So one of the biggest mentalities I've noticed, and this is really bad, is that once school is over, we're going to stop learning. Or once the test's done with, we're not going to worry about it anymore. But see, that's one of the biggest detrimental things. You know, I want to take the easy route out. If I'm going to be taking a class in advanced mathematics next semester, I'm going to want to have a firm understanding of the, the basis first. So what we want to do is we want to overlearn. Now, overlearning is not just hitting your head against the walls until you finally get it. Overlearning is taking this very specific approach in being able to understand your material that much quicker. See, it's not about how much you learn, it's about how quickly can you recall it. Back when you were younger, you had learned your multiplication table most likely, right? So if I were to say, like, what's 7 times 8, it would just come into your head automatically. But that's the importance of being able to have something instant recall, overlearning something. Super powerful, super important. Now, I know as I'm saying this is kind of like subjective information, but how does it apply to me, right? Well, okay, so the most important thing is you don't have that poor mentality where once I'm done learning what I'm going to learn, I can just go off and do whatever I want. And second of all, you want to make sure that you don't have any distractions when you're learning, because what you think about is super important. And we're not good at multitasking at all. Matter of fact, we're terrible at multitasking. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, our ability to multitask is completely down the toilet. And Just research it and you'll find out exactly why that is. So, how can we actually apply better learning skills? Well, from everything we've discussed, whatever it is you're studying, I don't have an example, so it's a little bit hard for me to talk on it because it's a very ambiguous thing right now. But whatever you're studying, you're going to want to question your material. So you're going to want to have a question model. So, that's not how you spell question.
You forgot your S, sir?
I forgot my S. So you're going to have a question model. Now, what does that mean? That means that you're going to question the material that you just learned to be able to understand it better. And to have a good question, we have to have a deep understanding, meaning we have to have a deep question. So, a shallow question would be, if I was to quiz you on this video, a shallow question would be, what is metacognition? Because this is only looking at a very minute idea. This is only looking at the definition of a term. You can highlight terms and definitions, and that's what you want to do when you do a lot of studying. You want to just highlight the main important broad parts because people want you to recall information. But what you have to do is you have to understand the information. You don't have to just recall it. You have to be able to understand it and use it in your working memory to be able to comprehend higher understandings of that word. So a deeper question I could ask would be, how is metacognition beneficial if you have an accurate awareness of what you're doing? This is a little bit deeper because this is focusing on how it relates to you and what the values of it in a way. It's, as we talked about before, it's a way to elaborate. It's upside down, who cares? Even deeper though, if I wanted to make a really good question about what I was just talking about right now, I would say, how can a poor metacognition affect your ability to learn well, and how much will it impact your ability to memorize things? See, that's something that would require you to have to take information and then compare and contrast, or how is the difference between a metacognition, having a good one and a bad one, and compare and contrast? I don't know, you get the point. I'm just kind of talking now. But, so, if I were to just like throw all this stuff out the window and just talk about how do you learn most effectively, read your damn stuff, pay attention to your stuff. Well, but we have to understand that paying attention is only one thing. But you want to focus intently on how this relates to your life. And I don't care if you're talking about psychology, if you're talking about anatomy, just relate it to yourself in a way. Say, this stuff kind of cool or whatever, just kind of look at it. And after you do that, have the mentality of that you're going to want to remember this afterwards, because it's super. I know stuff can be boring, right? Stuff can be completely boring, but you need to follow through. You need to keep going through it because it's going to help you later on. I know it sounds like you're going to learn your stuff, no, you really do. You really do, because this stuff.
Knowledge is power, guys.
Knowledge is power. I'm done. I don't have anything else to say.